Today we're going to learn how to solve two-step equations.
The important thing to know when you're solving two-step equations is that since there are two operations, we have to know which order to do them in. Now, early in this year, we studied order of operations, so we learned that we do parentheses, followed by exponents, followed by multiplication and division, and then last we do addition and subtraction. But when we're solving an equation, the interesting thing is that we're actually going to do this backwards. A really good illustration of why is if you think about solving an equation like getting undressed, whereas working a problem is getting dressed. If you think about when you get dressed, you're first going to put on your socks, and then you're going to put on your shoes. But when it comes time to get undressed, you're not going to take your socks off first as well. The last thing on is going to have to be the first thing that comes off. So the same thing is true when we're solving an equation. So look at the note sheet that I provided you with, and we're going to look at example number 1, where we have 7 times m plus 8 equals 71. Now, if you look, this equation involves an addition and a multiplication. And since the first thing that we would do if we knew what m was would be multiplication, and the last thing we would do is addition, then the first thing we want to get rid of is the addition. Now, the opposite of addition, of course, is subtraction. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 8 from both sides of the equation. Now, on the left-hand side, 8 minus 8, of course, cancels out, which leaves me with not m, but 7m. Important thing to notice here is, unlike our one-step equations where we do one thing and then all of a sudden the variable is all by itself, here I still have 7 times m left on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, I have 71 minus 8, which gives me 63. From here, now we simply are left with a one-step equation. If I have 7 times m, the opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide by 7 on either side. The 7's cancel out, leaving me with just m now. And on the right-hand side, 63 divided by 7 is 9. So my solution is m equals 9. Now, as we're getting into two-step equations, being able to check your answer becomes a more important thing, because as there's 2 steps, there's 2 places where you could make a careless mistake. So it's really good to know how to check your answers. To check our answers, we're going to take our original equation, which was 7 times m plus 8 equals 71. And then we're going to look at our solution, which as our solution we got that m equals n. So we should be able to replace m with 9, and it should work out if our solution is really correct. So if I take my original equation and simply replace m with 9, now remember this is multiplication, so it's going to be 7 times 9 plus 8, and if I did this correctly, that should equal 71. So now we do regular order of operations at this point, so our multiplication comes first. 7 times 9 gives me 63, and then 63 plus 8 is 71. So my check works out, which lets me know that my solution, 9, really is what our m value needs to equal in this equation. Now, look at example number 2 on your notes. For this one, we have a little bit of difference, and we have some negative numbers involved. So here I have negative 4x plus 16 equals 24. So, once again, if you think of the example of the socks and shoes, the first thing we do, order of operations wise, is the multiplication, negative 4 times x. And the last thing we do is addition. In fact, if you think, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, adding and subtracting always comes last in order of operations, meaning when we solve equations, it's always going to come first. So the first thing I'm going to get rid of is the plus 16. So to get rid of that, I need to also subtract 16, which means on the other side of the equation, I need to subtract 16. 16 minus 16, that just cancels out, leaving me not with x, but with negative 4x. And on the right-hand side, 24 minus 16 gives me 8. And then I have a one-step equation. This is multiplication, so to solve I need to divide. I multiply by negative 4, so I divide by negative 4 on both sides. And I get x equals 8 divided by negative 4, opposite sign, so it'll be negative 2. Now once again, we can do a check. If I take my original equation, which is negative 4x plus 16 equals 24, and I replace x with negative 2, since that's what we got as our solution. So I have negative 4 times negative 2 plus 16 will hopefully equal 24. Over here I do multiplication first, because by order of operations that gets done first. Negative 4 times negative 2, same sign, so it's going to be positive 8. 8 plus 16 gives us 24, and since that's what I wanted it to be, my check works out. The two sides are in fact equal, so that lets me know that my solution that I got, negative 2, is really in fact the value of x that makes this true. Alright, so let's look at a couple of division examples. So we're going to skip on, we'll come back, but for the purpose of, if you're really getting it, we'll go ahead and do numbers 5 and 6 and then come back to the multiplication ones again. So for number 5, we have y divided by 7 plus 6 equals 11. Now remember, addition and subtraction will be the first things we undo since they're the last things we do. So I'm going to start by subtracting 6. Subtracting 6. Now, one thing that I see students want to do a lot is they want to try and show me both steps at once. This needs to be 2 separate steps. So first I subtract 6. Then I get the answer. Once I subtract 6, on the left-hand side I have y divided by 7, and on the right-hand side I have 5. I cannot multiply times 7 up here. Even though that's our next step, that needs to be shown down here, because that's a second step. And if I show it up here, then multiplication would get done before subtraction. We have to do things in proper order. So we want to show subtract 6, find our answer from subtracting 6, which is y divided by 7 equals 5. Then, to get rid of the division by 7, I'm going to multiply by 7 on both sides. That will cancel, leaving me with just y, and 5 times 7 gives me 35. So my solution for this one should be 35. Now once again, we can check our answer. I'm just going to do it off to the side this time. So y divided by 7 plus 6 equals 11. And if y is 35, then I get 35 divided by 7 plus 6 should equal 11. Order of operations say I divide before I add, so 35 divided by 7 is 5, and 5 plus 6 is 11. So my check works out. My solution, x equals 35, or y equals 35, is correct. All right, if we look at number 6, this one is also a division problem. We have m divided by 5 minus 4 equals 21. So our first step in solving this one is going to be, again, to get rid of the addition or subtraction, in this case subtraction. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. On the left-hand side, adding 4 just cancels out the subtracting 4. So what I'm left with is m divided by 5. And on the right-hand side, I have 21 plus 4, which gives me 25. Then my next step is to undo the division. The opposite of division, of course, is multiplication. So I multiply by 5, and on the opposite side, multiply by 5. Division and multiplication by 5 cancel out, which leaves me with just m on the left, and 25 times 5 is 125. So my solution here is m equals 125. I'm going to do one last check after this. I'll let you check them on your own, but I will just want to make sure that we have a good idea of how they work. So my original equation was m divided by 5 minus 4 equals 21. I'm going to replace m with 125 because that's what I got as my solution. So I have 125 divided by 5 minus 4 should equal 21. Order of operations says we do division first, so 125 divided by 5 is 25. And then 25 minus 4 is 21. So both sides come out to equal 21, which tells me that my solution 125 is correct. Now, if you feel like you're pretty good and you've got the concept down and you want to move on into starting the homework, you can. If not, I'm going to go ahead and work through the problems we skipped, 3, 4, 7, and 8, so that way you have some. So we're going to look first at number 3. So number 3, we have another multiplication problem. It's 3 times d plus 14 equals negative 10. We get rid of adding or subtracting first. So since I have addition, that means I'm going to subtract 14. That will cancel, leaving me with 3d. And on the right hand side, now this is one where calculators would probably be a good idea to use at this point, because a lot of students still mess up with negative 10 minus 14. Negative 10 minus 14 is negative 24. Now, if you feel very confident with integers, you can feel free to do it without a calculator, but if you're a little bit confused, then you can just try punching it in on your calculator. Negative 10 minus 14. Notice this is a positive 14 we're subtracting. It's a subtraction symbol. We're subtracting the number, but the number itself is a positive number because I added positive 14, so I'm subtracting positive 14. So negative 10 minus 14 gives me negative 24. And then from there, I'm going to divide, because it's multiplication. So I'm going to divide by 3 and divide by 3 on the opposite side. The 3's cancel out, leaving me with d. And negative 24 divided by 3 is negative 8. Number 4 is our last multiplication one we're going to look at. It is 5 times x minus 42 equals 73. So the first thing we need to do is get rid of the subtraction by adding 42 to each side. Minus 42 and plus 42, of course, cancel out. So that leaves me with just 5x on the left, and 73 plus 42 gives me 115 on the right. Next, we're going to divide by 5 on either side, and I get x equals, and 115 divided by 5 gives me 23. So my solution here, x equals 23. Now there's also 2 additional division examples, so we'll look at those. Number 7, we have x divided by 8 minus 2 equals -5. Once again, the first thing I get rid of is always going to be the addition or subtraction. In this case, it's subtraction, so I'm going to add 2 and add 2. The 2's cancel, leaving me with x divided by 8. -5 plus 2. Again, if you're comfortable with integers, you can do it. If you're not, you can use a calculator. -5 plus +2 gives me -3. Now this is a division question left, x divided by 8, so that means to get rid of it I need to multiply by 8. On both sides, the 8's cancel out, leaving me with x. And on the right hand side we have a negative number times positive, so that will be negative, and 3 times 8 is 24. So my solution is x equals -24. And the final question from the notes, we have b divided by -2 minus 8 equals -6. So the first thing we need to do, as always, is to get rid of the addition or subtraction. Subtraction in this case. So I'm going to add 8 to get rid of the subtracting 8. And that means I also do it on the other side. Really important that you always show your work on both sides. The 8's cancel, leaving me with b divided by, not 2, but -2. Be very careful. A lot of times I have problems with students accidentally leaving off negatives. They're really important. You've got to keep them. And then we have -6 plus 8. Again, you can use a calculator if you need to, but -6 plus 8, they have opposite signs, so it acts like subtraction. So we get 2, and it's positive because 8 is bigger. And then from here, we're going to multiply because it's a division problem. And since I divided by -2, that means I need to multiply by -2 as well. The -2's cancel out, leaving me with b. And +2 times -2 gives me -4 as my solution. So, final solution for this one, b equals -4. So, hopefully that gives you a good idea on how to do your two-step equations. For your homework tonight, I need you to turn to the back of the page that we have notes on, and I want you to do questions 3, 4, 5, and 6. Making sure to show your work and also check your answers. So you should have all work shown exactly like what I did in class, making sure to show that you're doing the same thing on both sides of the equation and making sure to check your answers when you're done. Only 4 questions, and then we'll check those in class tomorrow before we move on to doing some additional practice with this. So make sure you get those 4 done tonight. That way I'll know how well you're understanding it and we can get a good idea of where we're starting in class tomorrow. Thank you.